Okay.
Yes,
All right.
they're visible.
So we're in the midway through this journey with mastering Claude AI, week number 3. This time we're going to be covering off a couple of things. We're going to talk about the ecosystem. We're going to talk about one of the key things that differentiates Claude from a lot of the others, and that's the artifacts. Okay, I'll also talk a little bit about the projects too. So a couple of those features we'll spend a little bit of time on. Get started. Okay. All right. So we'll spend the first part of this session really going through the Claude ecosystem, the projects as I mentioned, and understanding the artifacts. We'll do a demo, and then there's be Q&A at the end there, and we'll have some fun with this as we go through. So if you have any questions at all, feel free to put them in the chat. Raise your hand. We'll get to them today. So I mentioned today's agenda is the Claude ecosystem. You'll be amazed at how vast the ecosystem is. And this system actually differentiates itself from the other large language models in so many levels, especially when it comes to business and leveraging the tools that's been preset and pre-configured for you. Okay. We'll talk about projects, and how to use them, and then we'll get into artifacts. And the artifacts is really something you're really going to enjoy because it's where I said one of the key differentiator. So we'll show you, how to use artifacts versus regular chat, and how to create these powerful reusable tools. And then we'll build some interactive visualizations with the data tools. And you can come up with your own. After you see this, you'll be hard pressed, to do some things on your own because the power that would be in your hand with these artifacts tools. And then we'll share some creations. We'll go through some, how to go about fixing some common errors if and when you run into them. Okay, and yeah, and we'll use some real examples. If we get to the 3, they'll be great. Actually, I have 4 of them, but if we get to all 3, it'll be wonderful. But nonetheless, we'll do a demo and showing you how to create the artifacts. Quick recap from last week, or the last session we did, and actually, and I have a gift for you guys also too. So last week we covered off, or the last session we covered off the Claude models. Within Claude, there are a couple of key models that you can choose. Opus versus Sonnet versus Haku. We talked about those, and one, speed, performance, variety of things that you get from them from using each one, and why you choose each one. So you can always go back to the previous session if you want to see more, or do a refresher. And then we also talked about a 4-part prompt framework. Okay, establishing the role, the task, context, and then the output. With every prompt, no matter what tool you're using, you want to use this prompting framework that I mentioned and show you guys. And of course, there's the XML formatting for complex prompts. In fact, not only can you create an XML, but you can also ask the tool to create it for you. And it just makes it more concise, clean, and again, it's not techie, but it's a good way to get it precisely what you're looking for. And we covered that off in the last session also too. And meta prompting is another thing to help to let AI write the prompts for you. Okay. And there's another book that I have available. It's called, which I mentioned before, AI and Machine Learning for Beginners, which is really a great guide and an interactive step-by-step ebook actually that you can use to learn some of the fundamentals, learn the history, and do some interactive day-to-day AI stuff. So that's also available to you. All right, so take those skills and we're going to build some actual work today. All right. Before I jump into the meat and potatoes of this, I want to cover this off. This is I will actually probably go through more of this in future sessions, but the ecosystem for Claude is quite vast, and I've chunked it down. This is my chart. This isn't something that anyone else I've seen produced because people segment it different ways. But I decided to segment it to 7 major buckets. At the center of it, okay, and I'll show you that in a minute here. At the center of it is a chat, okay. So in any of these models that you go to, again, whether it be Claude, um, Chat GPT, any of them, you have a chat. That's how we pretty much interact with them, is ask Q&A or give an instruction and so on. So the chat is the core of it. Now, what Claude has done is they've created outside of the chat, you also have, and the way to access the chat, you go to Claude AI. There's a link that I sent out before. You can sign up for free. Okay, open up a free account. Okay, and in there you've got things like projects, artifacts, memory, MCP, connectors, and so on. So that's a whole world unto itself. Okay, in terms of the feature set, that's a part of that feeds into, I should say, feeds into chat. Okay, so if you're looking at this as a form of segmentation. Okay, then you get Claude Desktop, which is basically downloading Claude to your PC so that everything you do is local. Okay, it's not shared. It's not on the cloud. It's all localized onto your PC. And so that's a really nice way if you wanted to. In fact, Claude Desktop is a tremendous way to have your contents on your PC and have Claude read it directly onto your PC. So in a way, it's very similar to the co-work where you're actually sharing files and asking it to not only chat with it, but actually get things done for you. Okay, so that's the next segment is the co-work. All right, and let me just go through. And then design. Design is brand new, and a lot of people are not even aware of this. There's many people that actually even been talking about this. But if anyone is familiar with Canva, where you can actually design elements, design creative stuff, Claude has a whole design tool where you can essentially create decks of user interface, presentation, prototypes, logos. There's so much you can do under that. Okay, so that's another segment, and then I should say another bucket. Another one is a Claude Code where you can actually develop tools. Okay, that it's a desktop base, and you can essentially have it programmed for you. Okay, that's where the programming meat and potato of the program, building websites and doing those things. That's on the Claude Code, and then Claude Console is kind of your major master center where you have dashboards and managing agents and batches, skills, and all these various components and things that you can do with within the Claude world resides there. Okay, and so that in itself, and I showed that a little bit last week because we used it to create the XML and the super prompt. And so go back to that session to take a look at that to get a bit more details on it. But I'll just show a few quick slides on that. And then the integration where you can actually integrate Claude with, they partner with Microsoft, because even though Microsoft has CoWork, which is basically AI built with the Microsoft suite, well, Claude is partnered also with Microsoft to be able to integrate Excel, PowerPoint. So imagine going into your PowerPoint or going to Excel and talking to Claude directly in an Excel file with your data. Okay, that is powerful. It's super powerful. Okay, so and then there's some enterprise stuff there. So let me pause for a moment, and I'm going to show you just a couple examples of this. And we'll jump into the meat and potatoes of this session, as I mentioned here. So give me a moment. Let me just find. All right, here we go. Okay, so this is something that I actually asked Claude to put together for me, which is an ecosystem. And I can send this out to you. We're going to actually go through this more details in future sessions, I said, but I just want to quickly go through what I just showed you in terms of, whoops, okay, yeah, it's showing, each screen is sharing now. This is what I've created with Claude at Claude's help. And here you can see the 7 buckets, okay, the ecosystem with all the good details. And these are linkable. So I'm going to share this with you in future sessions, as I said, but we'll use this as a reference for the coming session. So you've got the first bucket I mentioned about conversational interfaces where you're talking to Claude directly, and then you've got the desktop app, which I showed you in the big picture of things there. Don't worry about the details of this. I'm just doing this at a high level so that I kind of set the stage for future sessions. And then we get the agentic and automation features, where Claude does the work for you, okay? And that's on the co-work and dispatch and some of these other things. This whole new this world within the world, essentially, when it comes to working with Claude. It's phenomenal the various things that you can do with it other than just chat. That's what I'm showing you here. And of course, there's the developer and platform and API, which we talked about. Just showed you the console and workbench for a moment there, as well as agents, which lives here. So creating agents that lives under this world here. And then you get into the coding tools, all right? This is, higher, more technical, but this is incredibly powerful. And I said I'll go through these in more because there's so much in this world of Claude. And then the sixth is your productivity integrations. Again, Claude with Excel, Claude with PowerPoint, Claude with Chrome, Claude with your email. I mean, it really is fascinating what you can cover there. And then we get into the seventh bucket of visualization. Okay, and that's where you get into Claude design and some of these others. So I'm going to stop here with regard to, let me go back to my, let me go back to pausing that. Okay, and I'm going to just continue on with the presentation because, as I said, there's a lot to cover, and I want to make sure that I don't miss anything here. So let's go back. One thing I did say that I had for you as a gift, and that is last week when we did the prompting. Just go back one here. Last week when we did the prompting, I have a link for you. I'm going to paste in the chat, and that is where you can get a free set of prompts that I've actually curated together all around social media. This could, no matter where you are or who you are, you can use this instantly out of the box and begin to transform your work in social media. Let me just go to the chat here so I can find the chat, and then I'll send that through to you so you have it handy. Okay, so this, as I said, is just a gift that I wanted to make sure that everybody, that I would have sent, I forgot to send last week, so I'm just putting in the chat now, and I will actually send it out later. So here you go. This is a link to the social media. Okay, social media prompts to help transform anything you're doing right now, any business. And I have a lot more to send, but I'm going to send you this right now. Okay, so just take a look at those, and you can have those. Just copy and paste those into social media, whatever fits for you. The social media, there's a prompt generator for social media. There's some very targeted prompting solutions there, so you can leverage them right out of the box. All right, so let's continue. You go back to sharing my screen here. Okay. All right. So what are projects? I'm just going to spend just a few minutes on this, not much. Okay, what are projects? Projects are really straightforward. Okay, it's a way of it's like folders on your desktop, or your when you're using online services where you have folders to be able to organize things. So it's a really nice way to just organize everything that you put in the chat. With a lot of these LLMs, you just keep talking to it and changing ideas and so on, and just get a long list. Well, they're basically dedicated workspaces in Claude that let you organize related chats, custom instructions, and reference materials into a single environment. So essentially, you can continue to chat with it, but when you're, if you like, you can move it to a project, so you have something. Let's say you have a project around social media. Okay, so all of your chats related to social media can go into that bucket, essentially. Okay, just again, great way of organizing that. So some of the key features around Claude projects is that it's like custom instructions. You've got these system prompts, and you can give it give Claude persistent personality, roles, and setup, to behave in these workspaces. All right. Keep in mind that some of the workspaces, depending on how your major setting is, and don't need to worry about this, but this is just want to make you aware, depending on your work setting, it may be that in that workspace, it doesn't remember who you are in terms of your overall. So you'll have to tell it each time, unless you do a major setting to, educate Claude, which is what it's learning about you every time. But you can go into the master settings so that no matter whether you're in projects or no matter where you are in Claude, it will always remember you where you are. So just keep in mind though that if you don't have that set up, that when you start a project, sometimes you may have to tell it a little bit more about what you want, okay, as opposed to it remembering, everything about you. All right. So Claude has the ability to have memory, and which is somewhat, there's some debate around that, but it does, and you can turn the memory on so you can train it about you and set everything up about you and your business, and it will always remember. But as I said, if you don't have it configured initially, then when you get into projects, it becomes like individual and unique. Um, um, to what you're asking it to do. Okay, and then project knowledge base here, I just mentioned that. Okay, you can upload documents and spreadsheets and all kinds of stuff so that it knows what you're looking to do. And then it has very focused chat histories, which instead of a messy chronological list of conversations, you literally have a nice flow, so for example, marketing blog, Q1 financial, all of the great way to just segment these things and group them. All right. And then, of course, there's team collaboration. Okay. Let's move on to artifacts. What are artifacts? This is the game changer right here. Okay. Think of it as your personal workshop, that Claude builds. Right? So it's interactive data visualization. It's simple websites and web apps. And by the way, this is available in the free version and the paid version. So anything I'm showing you here, okay, unless stated otherwise, you don't need to use the paid version for these things. Okay, these are just features and functionality that's available to the tool. Okay, and you can leverage them right away. Working code, you can preview instantly. So imagine giving an instruction and then seeing the instant output, side by side. Okay, that's the best way of describing this. All right, so you got charts, diagrams, and and graphics. Okay, and React components that become, micro apps, and then you can share these, and there's so much you can do with them afterwards. So that's the definition of artifacts. Okay, it's just a terminology that's unique to Claude, but it's also the way that they present it is unique to any of the LLMs. Okay, so what makes them different? First of all, it's primarily we're talking about 15 lines of code and comprehensive documents that goes into these artifacts. Again, not to say you can't use them in or get those created in the chat interaction, but when you use the artifacts mode, it automatically goes into this presentation, okay, and knows what you're looking to do. Okay, so just keep that in mind. That let's say lines of code. I'm going to show you a statement or show you some examples. If you had an idea and it was a one sentence idea, you could say to it, okay, create the code that I want to use in artifacts, and it will do that for you. Okay, so first, it's versatile and visual. We're talking about preview codes and charts and website instantaneously. So literally, it's building as you go, seeing what you asked for and seeing the visualization of it on the fly. It's incredibly powerful. And then these are shareable, and you can send the link out to friends, families, or coworkers, or your team members, and of course you can do so much more with them, which I'll show you. Okay, anyone can see your work and creation immediately, and then they're reusable. So you can save them as templates, and whenever you need, you can just update them, and you can even perform. Perfect for weekly reports. So you can use your creativity in how you want to use these tools. Okay. All right. When to use artifacts. Typically, you use them when you have like more complex, longer complex code. You want data that you've got to visualize, like an analysis tool, for example, interactive components, or even the comprehensive documents. And then diagrams and flowcharts are perfect for this, okay? But anything with 15 lines or more. And when I say 15 lines or more, again, you know, if you use the prompting framework, which you should, that I mentioned last session we're in, um, that can maybe even give you 3 or 4 lines. So as long as you have that, you can ask Claude to turn that into an artifact. If you want it to be an artifact, that is, okay? Again, there's a distinction. We already showed you what the distinction was, but I'll show you visually when we get into the demo, right? So most definitely, the 15 lines is what Claude is looking for with the artifacts. Okay, and then what here? You can skip artifacts for simple questions. I'm repeating myself here. Okay, so repeat simple questions, or if you have a simple statement or basic calculations, general advice. For the most part, most of us are using these tools like for search, or just Q&A. I need to know how to do the following. Boom. Okay. That wouldn't be that would not be an example of use of an artifact. Okay. That's a Q&A. It may come back and give you 2 or 3 options. It may tell you precisely what to do in terms of the answer. You'll see visually what that difference is shortly. But yeah, simple questions, basic calculations, that type of thing, general advice wouldn't be classed as artifacts. All right, some real world example. So here we go. I've got this prompt, and I'm going to actually use these prompts to show you in the demo. But let's just walk through them quickly, okay, so that we're all aligned with there. So we're going to do a sensitivity analysis tool, okay? So perfect for understanding, and I'm going to go through this just in the interest of time, just in case we don't get into the actual demo of each of these. I can also put these, by the way, in the chat that you can also use yourself too, and you'll see what we create shortly. So sensitivity analysis tool, perfect for understanding how variables affect your business outcomes, right? So in this case, the prompt would be, we're going to create a sensitivity analysis tool and artifacts that does the following. Okay, take the input variables for revenue, costs, and market size, and show how the changes in each variable, affect profit. Visualization, it visualizes the result using interactive charts, and then include in the error handling for invalid inputs. So that would be the prompt, okay, to create this, and you're going to see what that looks like shortly. All right, another one we'll get into, and I'll get you to also try it yourself too. Okay, decision matrix tool. So if you haven't already got Claude open, you can go ahead right now and get ready. When we do this, I can share the prompt with you, and you can just pop it in and see what results you get too. Okay. Decision making with multimedia criteria. So in this particular prompt, we're going to build an artifact with a decision matrix job site location that handles multiple criteria like weather, with customizable weights, calculates the weighted score for final comparison, and then provide a clear visualization of for a visualization of the results for fast gut check. Okay, and always and allows for easy modification and criteria handling there. And then another one, a Monte Carlo simulator. Okay, consider potential outcomes across thousands of scenarios. And this one here, create an artifact for a Monte Carlo simulation that stimulates project timelines, costs, and some of the other thing here, including budgeting and decision making, and then permit changes. All right, we'll see. We'll get to that one. And there's one more here, which may be maybe even more personalized for each of us here. But this prompt is a tremendous prompt for creating a tool, something I came up here with called, personal finance tracker. Okay, FinTrack as an example. And this is about say build me a finance tracker artifact that's called FinTrack with a sleek, professional, dark theme. I'm just going to put this chat. I'm not going to read the whole thing here, but it includes a dashboard with net worth summary and the monthly income, expenses, and transactions, budgets, goals, and some extra things that I have in here. So this is a good little display, interactive display that you could create and you can play around with it. So let's get to it. Let's see. Before we do, a couple more things to consider here. Okay, common errors and fixes. Whenever you do these prompts, again, you don't need coding. You don't need to understand coding. This is not about programming. This is about you knowing how to talk to it to get the results you want, and how and what tool to use, which part of the tools I should say, whether you want to use chat or you want to use artifact, and that's so when you're using artifact, if you do it and you run it and nothing happens or you get an error like that, you can come back and say to it and go, please fix. Just talk to it, tell it what you want specifically. Okay, please make this an artifact instead of a chat. Right, as an example, or it comes back and says it's too complex, then the real fix is break it down. Then talk to it, break it down. Start with the core feature and then add complexity slowly. Or another thing you may run into is says, oh, it's not working, and that might be an error that comes back. Again, simply say please fix. Okay, or find a workaround. Here's a screenshot. By the way, you can interact with Claude with images. One of the things I do a lot, you can just take a screen capture of the error or something that has happened and paste it into it and say, I got this. What do I do with it? Claude or any of the large language models will go through it, the image, and they will read the text, they will look at the image, they will tell you precisely what they see, okay? And they're bang on, okay? So truly, it's a powerful way to communicate with the tool by taking a screenshot instead of trying to say, I got this error that says the following, and which, you can do either, but taking a screen image is just as powerful, okay? And probably faster. So you can share these artifacts that I mentioned with the team. Okay, so you can, best part is that you build and collaborate. You can create something very useful like a decision tool, a chart, or a calculator, and then you can just push the publish button and make it available for sharing right away. And then you can send the link out to your team or to others. Okay, and they seem to work immediately because it's on demand. You're creating it and boom, there it is visually, and you can ask it to change or update. There's no setup, there's nothing required. It's live code on the fly. All right, 10 more ideas. I'm going to actually pause right here, and we'll come back to these ideas. But these are just some of the things that you can do here with and you can come up with your own outside or a variation of this. Okay. All right, so let's see this in action. All right, so let me just pause my screen, and then we'll go to I'll share this. I'll share the artifacts. And we'll start building. Again, if you have any questions at all right, feel free to just let me know. And let me share the artifacts. Okay. And let's put our first prompt in. And the first one we're going to do is the sensitivity analysis. If you remember that, the sensitivity analysis tool. All right, so I think I'm sharing my screen, right? Let's make sure we're sharing the right thing. Yes, we are. Okay. So under Claude, you go to artifacts. Okay, drop down menu and you click on the artifacts, and there you create a new artifact. Okay, and I'm going to just say a new one. Okay, just create a new artifact. Okay, so it gives you a couple of samples that you could start out with. Okay, like maybe it's add website, and I'm going to actually just start from scratch. Okay. So I'm going to copy and paste the artifact in here, and I will also put it in the chat too, so that you have this handy and you can follow along. Okay, so go into artifacts. Again, this is for artifacts. It's in the chat, and let that run. And here you can see that it's building that on the fly. Now, I'm not sure how long it's going to take. It shouldn't take that long, but while it's doing that, I'm going to queue up the next one because I want to get through a few of these in this demo. Okay. Okay, so this is a very simple tool that's creative. And again, base revenue, and then I can update this. Oh, is it finished? No, it's still not quite finished yet. Okay, so it's still creating that. One of the nice things is that it's built as it builds it on the fly, showing you exactly where it is in the process. And all right, so any questions at all, please put them in the chat, okay, or raise your hand. And just check and see if there's anything in there. Okay. Okay. All right. So here we go. So here you can see the artifact that is created directly in this. And we can play around with the numbers. Okay. In this case, again, I didn't give it any more criteria, but I could really, start modifying and asking for changes on this. But just based on that prompt, okay, this is again, for certain business may want to look at your profitability your profit sensitivity, and then you can see the as you make the adjustments, with the almost like what if scenarios, you can see your revenue here gets adjusted as you adjust the scale in that. Okay, so let's um, okay, and then I can add that to projects, which I'll get back to projects in a second there. That was the organization of it, okay, of the information. So here you go. This is a simple chart, but notice the interactivity of it. So as I adjust the market size, depending on, again, some, you run your business, then you know what would be the impact if I, got a significant 30% market share, all right? Or what would be the impact if I adjust my cost, down. You can see here is showing you here, with these lines, it's showing you the revenue, potential revenue, versus, and then of course your revenue versus profit and cost scenario. So a really cool tool to play around with, for your business, in terms of, again, the sensitivity of business there. So let me go to another one. Let's do another. Let's go and create another artifact. Go to artifacts, and let's throw this one in here, this in the chat, and we're going to create a new artifact. This one is up. Whoops. Again, I do that. I don't need to do that. Keep doing that, and I should. Oh, I forgot to share that. You know what? I'll share it afterwards. Okay. So now we're going to just throw the prompt in there and build an artifact. Okay, with the decision matrix. And then the third one I'm going to do actually is I'm going to skip over to the fin track. I'll do the fin track right after this. Okay, so while it's building that, does this match your vision? Oh, so it's asking me here a question. Okay, great idea. Let me make sure I understand the full scope. Okay, decision matrix, 5 to 7 default criteria, whether, just again, I'm just going to verify each of these just for the interest of time here. So I won't change anything. And then I'll say, yes, please go ahead. Okay, yes. Okay. So we'll let that build, and then I'll prepare for the next one. There we go. All right, so here we go. So it's going to build this. So again, job site location. Again, for depending on the nature of your business, essentially, this may or may not apply. Obviously, the revenue one that we just did there would apply to any business. If you want to start looking at your projections and your revenue and your cost and how to adjust it, that's a great. That was basically a what if scenario tool that we created there. That's where that decision matrix came in handy. So here we're going to create this job site one. This one is a bit more involved. And you can see it's just creating the code there. I didn't type any coding. All I did is give it an instruction. But again, in the artifacts mode, it's actually displaying it on the right-hand side, showing me what it's doing. And then as soon as it's finished, yeah, this one is a lot more involved than I thought it would be. All right, now here we go. Okay, so okay, job site, compare job site location. Refresh that so we get the, okay, that one should work. Okay. I'm not sure why this one is not working, folks. Give me a moment here. Let me see if there's, okay. While that is, I'll come back to that. I will come back to that. So let's go to the third one and build the finance tracker. Okay, I'll come back to that shortly. And then we're going to publish each of these. I just wanted to get them going and start it. And then I'll go back and talk about each one just in the interest of time. All right, any questions at all? That's feel free to put that in the chat. Nothing. Okay, I was looking in the chat to see if there's anything there. Okay, so here it's building. There is a finance tracker. Okay, so let me show you what that looks like in another mode. Okay, and here you go. So this one is, I added a bit more criteria to it. That's why the prompt was a little longer. And you can see that that's the original prompt there put in there. Okay, so this one I was really thorough with, where the other ones was just a quick snippet. But still, it's more about showing you what it does than it is about the look of it. But anyway, this is the dashboard for the FinTrack. So tracking your finances for your personal finances or your business. In this particular case here, you can see your transaction, your goals, your budgets. You can export it to a CSV file. And going back to the dashboard, it's showing me my charts. It's showing all the information here. And of course, I can also add an expense. So, say grocery. Okay. 350 amount food category. And then I want to say what was date that it was purchased yesterday. Okay. And add that transaction and it will automatically update for me. All right. And just redo a refresh. And there it shows up in the expense section. Now, what I mentioned about sharing, I can publish the artifact, and just by pressing publish, says, yeah, you sure you want to publish this? Yes, I do. And here's the link. I'm going to share it with you in the chat. And you can review this yourself, okay? And play around with it with yourself. And then if I want, I can unpublish it at any time. So that's an example of, again, typing in interacting with it in a sense that you're getting a design on the fly. And then here, I can add other things if I want to say, let's say, please add projections. Please add projected, and it will think of it and come up with it, on its own. Projected income and expense. So you're building on the fly essentially, okay? And it will take that in consideration. It will adjust it accordingly. Let's see if there's any other questions coming in here. Oh, I didn't share that prompt. Let me share that other prompt. I'll share this one in the chat. Okay, this is the fin tracker, the finance tracker. I've just put that in the chat for you there. So you have that finance tracker. Okay, so here it's building that, and now I'm just going to open it up. Whoops, I think it's still, it's not quite finished yet. It's not quite finished. All right, so that's artifacts. Again, I've gone really fast here, but I just want to show you, it's really just, when to use it and how and what the display and presentation looks like and how to interact with it, right? And then I'm going to go back and I'll show you a little bit about the projects. But let's see this one through, see if it's going, because it's going to take a little while to update the code and then refresh the display. Somebody's
Please put yourselves on mute.
Mute. Okay, all right. So that's artifacts. And we talked about the ecosystem earlier. And I'm just going to wrap up with let's see, there's one more. Actually, we have time to do one more artifact. So let me create that. Actually, I think this one is not quite finished yet. So let's let this finish. Yeah, it's still orchestrating the chart enhancements and going through. So because I asked for, an added feature there, this might be a significant feature that it's doing. I'll add it. Yep. Oh, yeah, it's doing it. Okay. So we just needed to know how to make the changes. What's going on with any of these LLMs is that they essentially have multiple agents working on these projects that they're talking to. So essentially, it's like giving a developer. You get the instruction and you pass it over to the developer. The developer in this case is Claude developer. That's happening. That agent that's working on the actual coding. So you have like almost like a project manager for the information that you give it, and then it then passes it on to the developer or the coder, and you can see on the screen where it says that it's thinking, or it's saying oh, I understand now. If you start reading the line, you don't have to worry about any of that. It's just it's the conversation that's happening between in our world, if you will, a project manager and a coder, and then it'll tell you when it's done. But it's really interesting to see the dialogue that happens when you give it a request that shows up on the screen there. So now it's saying here, let me verify the file, and then it'll create the necessary outputs. And that should be done shortly. And let me queue up the last prompt. All right, there. You can see that's now finished. Let's open that up. And there, okay. And here you can see we have a 3-month forecast. The change occurred right on the spot, right on the fly for us here. So I just with that one line, I said, okay, great. You now have this. Now give me a projected income and revenue based on the historical data that's being processed right here. So now it's added this 3 month forecast. You can see my projected income 21,000 at 7,000 per month. Again, these are fictitious numbers here, but really it's amazing how quickly it pulled us together to give you this demo here. All right, and then we get into what are the expenses, and it groups them all for you. So imagine for your business where you have an accounting system, where you have information here and there, you can build something for yourself that it will take your in this case, a financial tracker, it will take those receipts and and organize them for you and place them into the tool that you can track, you can print, and it's a great tool if you wanted to even just track your how you're doing even on a personal level. That's what, and then of course you can export it to Excel. All right. I don't know if we're going to have time for the other one. No. So I can make those prompts available to you, but just in closing here, give me a moment. I'm just going to just bring back my PowerPoint, and then we're going to wrap up on that. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask away. So give me a moment. Let me just bring this up. And okay, continue sharing. All right. So what we saw is we didn't do the Monte Carlo simulator. Instead, we did the FinTrack. All right, but you saw the sensitivity tool, which is really that was built in a matter of seconds, right? Which is great way to see some projections and the impact as you start playing around with those dials. And that sensitivity tool could be easily modified to anything that's similar for your business. Okay, it could be sensitivity to the weather. It could be sensitivity to another area. Let me go back to this chart here actually, where you know for artifacts, look at some of the things you can do here. These are just 10 examples that we've come up with here. Okay, but a budget tracker with charts, which similar to the FinTrack one actually I just did there. Okay, a project timeline visualizer. Customer feedback analyzer, return on investment, ROI, calculator, an interactive organization chart or org chart, or even a sales pipeline dashboard. Very similar. The sales pipeline dashboard could be something similar to the decision matrix one that we did, the beginning where you start playing around with projections. Okay, that's what that sliding bar was. As you start playing around with those three bars, cost. I think it was the market, how much of the market you get. You start playing around those. You start seeing some projections, and then of course meeting note formatter, and then contract comparison tool, email template. I mean, there's so much you can do with these artifacts. All right. A quote generator is a tremendous way to leverage it too. All right. All right, let's go continue on. And so just quick key takeaways here. Remember these artifacts for success. Artifacts, basically you want to use it for substantial, visualized, shareable, and reusable content. Typically, 15 lines or more of code. And again, you can start with a single sentence and tell Claude, I want to create this in an artifact. That's a specific word there. And then it will convert that into 15 lines or more, or the minimum requirement that's needed for there. And then you can just enhance it as I showed you, as I did with the FinTrack. And then, of course, be specific about your prompts. Remember, use the 4-point prompt that we learned in previous session. The role, the specific that you want, and then ultimately the outcome that you're looking for. And then if you run into any errors or that it gives you, always interact with it. But what you want it to do? What is it you want it to do? Okay, and then you can share. You want it to fix what you want it to fix, or give it a picture of the issue that it's run into, and then you can share instantly via the publish button. And then start simple, build one thing at a time, and then share. Okay, just play around with it. I've given you the links. I've given you a couple of the prompts there, and you can play around with those things. Are there any questions? Just want to remind you the way you can get a hold of me. You can book a meeting with me through my Calendly. I'm the author of the book Reclaim Your Digital Gold, all about data, AI, and it's actually getting ready to do a second edition in the near future. So keep an eye out for that. But which we're going to have a lot more on AI, which it does already. But we're going to talk about what's happening with the greatest changes that are happening in our society. And so you can get access to the book at Reclaiming Digital Gold. It's also on Amazon and various other platforms. And if your business is ready to do an AI assessment, you can go access to this link here, AI-readiness-check.2020ic.com, and you can do it. There's a simple questionnaire there that will help you determine how ready your organization is for the impact on AI, and you can book a consultation session with me. All right, so those are the things that are available to you. If there are any questions, let me just check the chat and see. I see, yeah, a few things in there. So let me just go through these one by one, okay? All right, so I've given you the chat. Couldn't you just take a picture of them and put them into Claude? Regarding the receipts, yes, absolutely. So yeah, very good question, Antonio. With regard to the pictures, anytime you have images or JPEG, put them in Claude. You don't have to, like, the question here is about receipts. If you have receipts and you want to incorporate them, you don't have to type them in. Just take a picture of it and put it into Claude, and then Claude will diagnose it for you. All right. So one of the things about Claude Cowork, which we haven't gotten into, but I'll talk a bit about this just briefly, is the Claude Cowork is that one of those buckets I mentioned in the ecosystem. Claude Cowork is essentially the get it done for you. All right. So you can interact with it in a sense of, okay, I want something to get done. This is my idea, but now go and do it. All right. So very much like you're building your agents to go and work for you. And Claude Coworks can work off your desktop. So you can have a whole folder of receipts, for example, for your business or for personal. And then you can say to it, okay, go into that folder and look at all of the receipts that are there, the images of the receipts that are there, and create an Excel spreadsheet for me for my business, or add them to my existing spreadsheet. In addition to that, you can also have it connect with so many other things. That's the integration piece, which is the bucket. The one of the 7 buckets that I showed at the beginning of this session here. So I don't want to go off track and go into too many other areas, but the power of this tool is incredible. What you can do and what you can accomplish, and I've only shown you a fraction of that today. Okay, let's see if there are any other questions or comments. Yes, you can connect with me, Olivia, not a problem at all. Let's see what else. Okay. All right, I'm going to stop sharing. All right. Before I do, for next week, I'm going to get into some advanced techniques with Claude. We're going to go a bit more into projects, automation, integrations. Okay, that's all a part of that ecosystem that I told you about. Okay, the ecosystem is very vast. And so you will see a lot more of the power of Claude next week. Let's see, and that's, I think, is it the week 3 challenge. I want to challenge you in this. You can take a snapshot of this if you like. Choose a real problem that you have to solve. Write a detailed prompt using requesting an artifact, and then test it and fix any of the issues that you may come across just by saying, please fix. Okay. You don't have to be a techie on this. You don't have to be, know how to write code or even how to diagnose code at all. Okay. If you see Claude throwing up code on the side, don't worry about it. It's just doing its thing. You don't need to worry about that. And then, of course, publish and share them. Okay. Share with your team or share with others, maybe even share with me. And, let's continue this journey to learn together. Because Claude has so much. And I believe that these large language models, what's going to happen is that one of them or a couple of them is going to percolate to the top as the winner. And so far, Claude is winning the race. So we'll see what happens in the future on that. I'm going to stop the recording